psychological approach that focuses in all the hidden patterns of our family system.
We all have things that are not quote unquote accepted or thought of as good, but it doesn't mean that we're bad people. It means we're human.
You start feeling things that you've never felt before. You start having emotions. Sometimes you want to cry, sometimes you want to run. I mean, many things that you can't even imagine.
Welcome to the Integrated Mind podcast, where we help you connect your mind, your body, and your soul. I'm your host, Bel Scotle, your integrated psychotherapist, and I have an amazing guest today. Her name is Erica Geraldo. She is a psychologist that focuses on family constellations. Welcome, Erica. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank
Good.
you for having me here.
Of course, of course. So, family constellations. That's something that I've heard, through people, but I really didn't understand exactly what it was until we spoke. But for the audience, I want to just first give you the opportunity to really tell what family constellations really is, like explain it.
Okay. Well, family constellations is a psychological approach that focuses in all the hidden patterns of our family system.
Okay.
So specifically, the generational trauma that we're hearing a lot lately. Everything that we don't know that exists because it was things that happened way before we got into this world. So many generations behind us. And we're carrying all this information. And it's actually the result of who we are until we're able to open up and really see what's inside of that.
Okay. So, how does it work? How do you know when a person is needing or can benefit from this? Tell me a little bit what happens, I guess.
So the way that the family constellations therapy or session works is, first of all, it's for anyone that's open and ready to see deeper in their family story and their origin. If they want to, dig in to see who they really are, basically. Because we come to our family system and we only know a part of it. So when you're ready to really go inside and have, this connection to all these things. And also when you start seeing patterns, repetitive patterns of things that happen to you, relationships, accidents, illness, all these things.
Okay, so when you say that, I think about patterns of I always bring this one up because maybe it happened to me and it happens to a lot of women, especially now, is the patterns of not successful relationships. It's kind of like another failed relationship, another failed relationship, another failed. Would that be
Exactly.
an understanding why? Okay.
Exactly. So there okay, I can benefit from a family constellations. And then after that, you find a facilitator that can, help you in this process. And basically, when you go to a family constellations therapy, you're in a group setting.
Okay.
Okay. So it's group setting.
So it's not an individual session.
There's also individual sessions. But for me, the most powerful one and the one I specialize is in the group setting. Okay. Because you're able to get each person that's participating here as a channeler or as a resonator for you. And this person doesn't know anything about you. This person has probably never seen you before. And you give this person a role. They're going to represent either you or a family member or a situation.
Okay.
And automatically, when you give the power to this person to do this role, the person starts downloading information from the quantic field. You start feeling things that you've never felt before. You start having emotions. Sometimes you want to cry, sometimes you want to run. I mean, many, many things that you can't even imagine start happening there. So when all these things, start appearing, all of this is information about specifically what the person needs to work on in that time. Okay. And then you start getting information, organizing the system through reconciliation, with words, with healing words, with different dynamics, so that the person can actually get a different view of their family and of what they want, they can accomplish after that.
Okay. You said connecting to the quantum field. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? Like, how does that happen? So just for and what is the quantum field and how do people connect to that or in the experience?
Yes, I will explain the basics of what it is. So we know that we're energy, right? We're energy. We know that we have a physical body, but behind this, we're light, we're energy, and we're vibration. Yeah. So with that, when we're in the field, when we start doing a constellations, like I said before, the resonators, they connect to that field, to that invisible field that you have. Your vibration, your light connects to the other person, and like a computer. I usually describe it. Okay. When a computer usually has all these things, like you have a way of, the cloud, the iCloud, where we have all this information and we're able to download from the iCloud. We're able to do that as well. And it's called the Akashic Records. I don't know if you heard about that.
Oh, so I didn't know that this involved Akashic Records.
I mean, it's just different names for everything. But if you see it, it's similar, because when you're in a family constellations, what you're doing is opening up and connecting to all that information that is already there in la nube, and you start downloading this. And the information starts appearing. Everything that you need in this specific moment starts appearing right there.
Is it like, do we do like an intention prayer, or do you do anything before, or you just start? I'm sorry, I'm just like, I know we've spoken before, but now I'm going into the nitty gritty.
I love it. I love it. I consider myself to be very spiritual, so I do it that way because I like to connect with higher source. I like to connect with my family system, and that each person also connects with their family system, so that we're all in the same energy flow before we start the sessions. But a lot of people are very, different, and they do it in different ways. But yes, I like to bring this spiritual sense to it.
Okay. How is this developed? How did you learn about this, family constellations?
I learned about family constellations because I started my own path of healing, basically. I was looking for answers. I think that, we're here in Miami, but most of us are not originally from here. We're from other countries. And that itself brings a lot of questions. Like, okay, I'm not where I was born. Everyone, or a lot of my family members were left behind. And all these questions. And there was a time where I felt very lost with a lot of questions. And my mom actually introduced me to family constellations. She started doing, sessions, and then I started myself. And then after a while, I decided, I really want to go deep into this and start learning about it so that I'm also able to bring this to the world.
How was it created? Who created it? Like, who brought it out? Who, what is the foundation behind it? What is the...
Yes. Bert Hellinger. Have you
Okay.
heard about him before? Bert
I have
Hellinger?
not.
Okay. You should have a little investigation. It's very interesting because Bert Hellinger, he passed away around 3 years ago. I was
Oh.
able to meet him before he passed. He was a German psychotherapist, but before that, he was a priest. A priest for 20 years.
Wow. So he was a priest for 20 years and he became a therapist, and then
he went to the Zulus community in South Africa.
Okay.
Where the way they work, or the way they solve problems, is through rituals, because obviously it's a tribe,
Yeah.
So he integrated all these things, the 20 years of being priest, the time that he was in the Zulus, and he, learned about all these rituals. And obviously he went to psychotherapies. He did a lot of fields in psychology. So he integrated all this and created family constellations.
Okay.
Which were defined by him by the orders of love.
Oh.
So the orders of love are basically the law that rules a family system. So the way he thought about it was, there's laws for the universe, there's laws for so many things. Well, the family system also has a law. And the laws are the orders of love, which are based on order and hierarchy. So what he said is, if there can be so much love in a family system, but if there's not an order, then the love can flow.
That makes sense.
Yeah, right? And everything in life, it's like, if there's not an order, then how can you
The energy doesn't flow. It's always, even if an intention is there and there's not, you don't know how to receive it, you don't know how to give it, you don't know what your experience, it's kind of like blocks it.
Exactly. So that's the main point. The order and hierarchy, which is who came first. We know that our mom, our dad came first, and then our mom and dad, or our grandparents. So that itself comes with, certain responsibilities, certain things that we need to respect, and we need to act accordingly to these roles. And that's the first point. Then the second point is inclusion, because in the family systems, we all have members that are excluded, because we have members that didn't do the right thing. They abused, they were drug addicts, alcoholics, or you name it, so many other things.
Or a kid that had a very strong personality, right?
Yes.
That it wasn't, it wasn't really received.
Exactly.
Well.
And then the family members start saying, oh no, we don't want to be around him, or he's not part of our family because he acts that way. And we start closing our hearts to these members, and the family starts being disorganized, and things are not going to flow in a loving way. So that second point is very important, because we need to include everything that happened in the past, good or bad, because at the end of the day, it's all part of our story, and it's all for our own good.
Oh, it's funny you said that, all parts of the good and bad, because I say that about loving ourselves authentically and completely, is we all have ugly thoughts, ugly behaviors, even though they might be less than the good ones. We all have things that are not quote unquote accepted or thought of as good. But it doesn't mean that we're bad people. It means we're human. And even those bad parts that we consider bad about us, they're there to teach us something. They're there to show us and open us up to something that we don't know yet.
Exactly.
So instead of thinking of it as bad, it's like, what are you here to teach me? What are you here to, in order for you to accept all different parts of you that make you, you, uniquely you. So I love that you just said that.
Yeah, and that's amazing because the way you talk about it is as an individual, and then the way I explain it, it's through
the bigger,
the
bigger,
family,
yes,
the system. So, and it's all the same. Like we were talking before, it's just everything, has like all the information we're getting now from different modalities and all this. At the end, they're taking us to one place, and is we want to be better, we want to be at peace, and we're all looking for the same, but we go through different,
And it's all in different stages. And it's true what you said. I'm looking at it as an individual. You're looking at it as a family, which is, your closest circle. And then from there, you look at it as in cities, and you look at it as in countries, and then the world. And then it's kind of like, it's just bigger, because it all starts playing a role, which then leads me back to thinking again, we're all connected. Everything that you do affects another person, and so on and so on and so on. Okay, so it's a group setting. The principle is love and order. Is there anything else?
Yes, and then the third point is give and take, give and receive, give and receive, which is balance, right? And this law applies, it also applies to the family system, but it's mainly between the same hierarchies. And what he's telling us here is that for us to grow within relationships, we have to do both. We have to give, and then the other person has to receive. And when the person receives, then he should give you a little bit more so that the relationship expands. Because what happens a lot of the times is that some people have this thinking, oh no, I just want to give, right? But then you're being a little selfish there, because then you're not allowing the other person to fulfill their needs, which is also to give. So at the end of the day, we all need to give and receive so that both of us grow, right?
Yeah, I mean, I always say every relationship is reciprocal. Every single part of our relationships, that can be our partners, that can be our siblings, our friends, our workplace, even our parents. It has to be a reciprocal relationship, because if it's not reciprocal, again, there's block. It's not authentic. It's kind of like, I want to give, but you're not receiving. And that's where frustrations and miscommunications and why relationships essentially don't work.
Exactly. Then it like stops the flow, because you need to keep the flow going. And that's the way in family systems and in relationships, what he mentions is very important. And then the other one that he mentioned that I've seen that not a lot of people talk about it, because it was like the last one he talked about was the good and the bad conscious.
Okay.
And that is that when we are in a family system, we always want to be the good conscious, which is I always want to be the same as my family. So if I'm, in a family that everyone drinks, then you want to be the good conscious. You want to drink
because you want to belong.
You want to belong. And that's another part.
Which is tied to, like, again, why kids in their teenage years, when their friends become who they look up to or who they listen to, that stage in your life when you're trying to figure out your identity, that's why there's peer pressure. It's because you want to belong, so people are going to offer you or do something, and you're going to be like, okay, I'll do it, because the sense of wanting to belong to something, to, that's how gangs are also developed, is for that same reason, is they don't have that connection at home.
Exactly.
They feel, completely alienated from their family. Not intentionally. Some parents are just can't for whatever other reason. And then also developmentally, when you're a teenager, you're trying to figure out who you are. So your peers become so important. But yeah, I digress. I want to go back to you.
But that's a great point, because it is the belonging part. You think that kids only want to do that, with their friends. But at the end of the day, we have so much love for our mom and our dad, even if they're doing something bad, that we want to do the same so that they love us. Because if we're kids and we're doing something that our parents don't like, then they're going to get mad.
Hi, Erica, you're saying so many things that I am just like so passionate about, because you just said it very beautifully. You're like, even though our parents might do something, we want to be accepted and loved by our parents. And that is very true. From the time that you're born till you're 7 years old, around more or less that age, you see your parents as God.
Yes.
You depend on your parents for survival, essentially. So anything that they do, even though it might be wrong, the child will absorb it and blame themselves.
Yes.
Because they're going to say, why am I not enough? That my parents are not doing this? Exactly. Do they love me if they're not paying attention to me here? All of these things. And that's where our core wounds are kind of developed.
Exactly. And it all starts right there. So yeah, very, very, very nice. And then the main point here is, how are we able to be the bad conscious, which is the one that says, Mom, I love you. I respect you. I honor your life, but I decide to do it different than you. And then you break, and then you break the
generational curls.
El hechizo.
El hechizo in Spanish, but it's a generational curse.
Exactly.
It's basically what it is. Instead of continuing that, negative belief system or negative behavior from your parents and your grandparents and your great-grandparents, you create a boundary. You actually are aware of what it is that's wrong, and you stand up to it.
Yes.
And that's, I can relate to that. I can relate to that. Do you have a personal experience? I'm just curious.
Well, in general, what I was going to tell you is that at the beginning, when people go to family constellations and they do all this work, at the beginning is really hard. Sometimes their family actually get very upset.
Of course.
because they don't want you to change.
Because then if they change, you have to change. If the person changes, that forces them to change.
Exactly. Then something gets uncomfortable, right? So at the beginning, there's a lot of resistance most of the time, right? From mom, dad, or brothers, or, any family member. Because at the beginning it's hard. But then after, maybe I can say a year or so, they start seeing that it was for the best of all of the tribe. And then they understand why the person actually did it. And then that's when, everyone starts creating this new way of thinking.
Do you think sometimes it doesn't flow that good though?
When
sometimes, I'm just thinking of families and when you bring up uncomfortable things, and when you're that bad conscious and you say to your family member, I respect you, but I don't agree with you. There's also a potential there for alienation.
Yes.
Because maybe the family comes around, but maybe it doesn't.
Yeah. And maybe it happens that for a long time, or maybe never, they'll never accept that maybe your dad wanted you to be a doctor and you decide to be an artist, and he's going to be really sad. He's going to exclude you the rest of your life, but you did your part, and you give your dad a place in your heart, and that's all you need.
So how does that play out in the actual session?
So I also wanted to I think we spoke about the quantic field and all of this. And I also wanted to mention the morphogenetic field, which is, it's probably the same, but it was developed or founded or created by Rupert Sheldrake, which is a scientist.
Mm-hmm.
And he explains that it's a phenomenon. So basically, what happens in session, you never know what's going to happen. So I can give you an example of what might happen, but it doesn't mean that it always happens the same way, right?
Yeah.
It's always different, always different. And sometimes you go in for a certain thing, and the constellation takes you a totally different different place. But the way it can show up is if a representative, it's representing your dad, let's say, and your dad really is mad because you're not following. The representative will start showing signs of being really mad, and that, creates the person that's there, like it starts shocking the person can start crying. They can start saying things like, I dishonor you, you're not part of my family, and then, things that your dad won't actually say it, but it's there. And when the person says it, it breaks that. Something happens. Something phenomenological from the phenomenon happens there, and it breaks.
Well, I mean, it's everything that we can think of when it comes to emotions, thoughts, that creates an energy, right?
Exactly.
Our thoughts create an energy. What we say creates an energy. What we don't say. So Freud says, God, I can't remember the quote, but Sigmund Freud talks about energy will always be manifested in a certain way. So our thoughts are how we think, is either going to, if you don't express it, it's going to manifest in different ways. So when you saying that, I think about people that don't express what they truly think or feel. And then it gets manifested in an illness, in a certain behavior, or something that's not beneficial. And it's a way, again, your body trying to talk to you to say, you know what? You have to say exactly how you feel. Now, this is from how I do it. And you tell me how you do it in the family. Well, I know how you do it in the family constellations, but I love journaling. And this is where I always tell my clients that have a lot of things that they are not going to tell their parents or not going to tell their partner, but they need to get it out. I'm a big believer you need to get it out. Just write it out. Write it out. Say the ugliest things that you will never are embarrassed to say, that you would never think of actually verbalizing out loud. Write it out and then burn it.
So powerful. It's powerful.
And then you burn it. Nobody's going to see it. Take 30 minutes to yourself and do that exercise and then burn it. Because like how you say, the energy is then released, so that tension is not, you're not holding on to that. Exactly. That thoughts, that emotion, that feeling, your body's not holding on to it. So it's very similar.
Very similar, yes.
It's just actually acting it out.
Exactly. But, sometimes I do tell my clients to do that as well, because I feel that there's still, because obviously one family constellation is not able to resolve all your story, and not even, until the day we die, we're gonna keep on, healing parts of our life.
It's never ending.
So it's a never ending story, but it's a part, so sometimes there's people that are a little bit more stuck because they have more anger inside or more resentment. And that helps to expand the constellation. So
you release.
Yeah. So write, a letter to your dad, say the ugliest thing, exactly what you said, and burn it.
Burn it. Nobody has to read it, because it was like, what if somebody reads it? Burn it. You don't need to see this again. You got it out. So when you say group, is it people that you work with that just use themselves as like a model for the session? And how do you orchestrate that? How do you create the setting?
So there's different ways. One is a workshop, everyone works, everyone's part of the constellation, everyone puts, something they want to work on, and that's a group setting. So everyone there is there for a reason. They all want to work on something for themselves.
We need to do something together with that.
Yes,
We
absolutely.
need to do something together with that.
But yeah, it's like in that workshop setting, everyone's able to, to see your soul. What your soul is like your subconscious, it's like, what is this person doing? Who are you looking at? Are you looking at the future or at the past? Like, where are you located right now? And it's very interesting because we're always in different places. Like we're in different stages of our life, and we could be very evolved, but sometimes we're looking back. And what is it that you're looking? What do you want to see? So everyone gets a chance, an opportunity to work on, something for themselves. Or there's a different setting that that I create a space for someone that wants to do a family constellation, and you ask for resonators to participate.
Okay.
And these are people that have been in constellations before, they've done a constellation before for themselves, or they're open to participate because they want to be part of this. That at the end of the day, even if you're a resonator, you're still working on yourself. Even if you don't put out something for you, like a specific situation or thing, you're still working because we're resonating. You're asking me to be your mom for something, for a reason. I have something in my field that connects with this. So
there's something there.
yes. So yeah, so those are the two ways that you can work.
Do you have an example of a very transformative, either yours personally or a client of yours, that they did this and it just changed their life?
Yes, I have many, but I love this story that happened probably 2 to 3 years ago, and it's wow, it was, shocking for me. A family of girls. There was like 2 girls and 1 guy, a brother, and the dad was he abused the 2 girls, and the brother
Sexually?
yes, sexually. And the brother, the little brother, was he knew that was happening. So to make this short story short, they all went to a session to work on their self, like separately, because something I didn't mention before is that when you do a family constellations, you don't go with your family. You go
With somebody that's
with
not.
somebody that you don't know. So everyone there is, totally, like they don't have any information about your life. So they each went for different sessions independently, and they were working on, on this situation that happened within the family system. Even the mom. It was beautiful because the dad was the perpetrator. Perpetrator. Obviously, because he was hurting, the girls, and obviously this, kid that was seeing everything that happened. He felt, ¿cómo se dice en inglés? He felt culpable. He felt guilty because he wasn't able to kill the dad or to
stop it.
The girls felt used. They felt that the mom was not protecting them. So there was a big conflict within the family. And then it was so beautiful that they all opened up their heart and did this, independently. And it transformed their lives because obviously, now they were seeing their dad in a different way. And they forgive him. They forgive the mom as well. And they made this different choices in their life. And now they're in a different place. I mean, the girls have different relationship with men because before, obviously, they had very dramatic situations. And the guy, the boy, the brother, he changed completely.
Yeah. Was the parents still alive? Just curious.
Yes. And it was a very hard situation because when this person came out, a lot of dark energy, like really, really low vibration, like probably one of the toughest that I've seen. Yeah, because
how did that look like when you like? ¿Cómo se vio?
It's como que I have a lot of family constellations with sexual abuse. This is something very normal because I feel when you start seeing the reality is that more girls and boys, but I guess girls are the ones that want to open up more. Mm-hmm. So many people have been, sexually abused, and now they want to get it out. So it's very common. I'm not saying normal, but common. But in this case, the energy was kind of like very dark, like the
heavy?
Person was laughing, like it was just so heavy. It was scary. I mean, I had to start connecting to all my, my guides, my angels, and asking for help, because there was a point where I felt this is really getting out of control. Like the energy that this person had inside was really, really crazy.
And did that happen? Because you said it was 3 of them and they had their individual sessions.
It happened similar, but in different ways. Obviously, it can't be exact, but very similar.
The energy was the same.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Wow.
The reason why I mention, like, a lot of times I mention this case or this family is because it's not very common that like a lot of people from your family actually does,
Yeah, it's usually like the one that wants the bad consciousness.
See.
The one that wants to break, the one that, it's kind of like the one that everybody pushes to the side.
And here I was able to see like mom, the 2 sisters, and the brother. So wow. Yeah, very, very, very transformative. And it's a blessing for me that I was able to experience this.
Do certain situations require more sessions, or is it more of like, this session is for this session is for the other thing, or like, how does it work?
Yeah, it's more like you connecting with your soul. Like, what is it that how do you want to how far do you want to go, in your origin, in your story, in your history. But I don't recommend, like, if you're doing a family constellations for mom and dad, I don't recommend to do like certain like amount, like, oh, you have to do 2 or 3. It doesn't really work that way in family constellations. It's more like, let's wait to see how the energy moves or works, what opens up for you. And if in the long run, we see that you're still having issues or situations with your mom and dad, then we see what we can do next.
I mean, as you're telling me, it's like a psychodrama, right?
It is. It has some parts of psychodrama because Bert also studied psychodrama. So he did, like I told you, like he integrated like different modalities. Mm-hmm. So that's why.
Yeah, it has the Gestalt aspect of psychology, and he was a psychologist. It's about, again, the energy, releasing that energy. because your feelings, your emotions create such tension and resistance that it needs to come out. I mean, that's where the integrated mind and this podcast and my business is, you know, moving the body to release all of the stress that your mind is creating in your body. Your physical part, your emotional soul, your connection is also extremely important in the healing aspect. And I think what happens in this community and what has happening in the world right now is that people don't have that connection with their inner self, their higher self, their soul, God, whatever it is. So all of our pain, all of our unprocessed experiences that we keep inside create layers between us and our authentic self, us and our soul, us and God, whatever it is that you connect with, right? It's because of all of these things that we don't process. Emotions we don't process, things that we want to say and feel and think that we don't let out, experiences, whether it's sexual abuse, emotional abuse, psychological abuse, because we all experience it in our daily lives. The life of a human being is not perfect. You know, it has peaks and valleys. And when we don't express these things, we don't talk about it, we don't really verbalize it, it gets stuck. And then the distance with that connection gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Does that make sense to you?
Yes. And when you say stuck, the same way, like when you have all that energy stuck, then your life is stuck. You can't go forward. It's very hard to move forward.
And you don't even know why.
Exactly.
You don't even know why.
You don't even know why.
And the whole aspect of ancestry and generations, I'm wondering, I'm going to ask you this. How about the energy of like a great grandparent, right? And how that's transferring down to generations. How would that work? Would that show up in a session?
Well, that part, yes. But if it's your first family constellation, I try not to go so far because, I mean, depending on what the field shows you. But if the field shows you that definitely you have a direct connection with your great grandparent, because let's say he was in war and he went through all these situations, and now you have I don't know, a lot of mental issues are connected to people that are carrying all these situations from war. Our grandparents that were in war and all this, it develops in a lot of mental health issues. So if it's like connected directly to that, then you would bring out the great grandparent and see what does what is this soul wants to say? I mean, what's the information there that the person needs to know?
Oh, can I give you a personal example here? Can I share something personally to see if maybe you can guide me? So, the women in my family, more my mom's side than my dad's side. So my grandmother, when she was born, her mother died at birth. And I'm talking about, early 1910, 1912. So in Puerto Rico, in an island in Puerto Rico, her mom died when she was being born.
Okay.
Her dad, I don't even know. So these are my great-grandparents. My great-grandmother died giving birth to my grandmother. My great-grandfather, I never knew who he was. So my grandmother was raised by an aunt and uncle, not really having a home, not really having parents. It was kind of like she was thrown from home to home, you know, which of course brings a very strong woman, but there's that missing heartfelt, that missing love, nurturing, all of those things. And then she gets married and has 4 children, one of them including my mom. My mom was the youngest one. And her husband dies. Her husband dies with her being a widow in the 1940s. 4 kids, no education, Her youngest child was 2, which was my mother. Again, very rough. Not saying she was a bad person. She was actually my grandmother. I loved her very much. But I'm understanding the correlation between her generation and generation of how in my family, I'm very strong. And it took me a long time to really connect emotionally and create that loving part of me because it wasn't really shown to me through that lineage. So I'm wondering how that would fall into family constellations.
Yeah, I mean, you explained it perfect. It traveled from your great grandmother to your mom and to you, but you were that bad conscious.
Oh yeah, I was a bad conscious. I was a rebel.
Yes, and you still are. I mean, and you're doing it for your kids because if not, it would have, kept on traveling. And now I'm not sure how deep have you gone into all this information, but I'm pretty sure you've done a lot of work.
Oh yeah, done tons of work. But I'm still interested.
No, of course. And and it's always very interesting because there's always things there, always. Even if you think, oh no, I have my life, all settled and everything, but there's always things, that are hidden there that it's, if you're interested in bringing them out, then it's nice to do all these things, all this work because it brings you a new perspective. Yeah.
And the new perspectives gives you awareness, which awareness is the key to transformation, is what I always say. Yes.
And there's always room for improvement, right? Always. So
I'm wondering, like you mentioned, a lot of the mental health issues that we have with depression and anxiety, I would say probably more depression, has to do with a lot of the ancestral stuff.
Yes.
From your experience in the family constellation?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure if I can say all of it, but mainly yes, because we're carrying all these things that are not ours, There's a book called, I don't know how to say it in English, but Este dolor no es mío, which is this pain is not.
So there's a book in English, maybe it's the same thing and just translated into both languages. It's called It Didn't Start With You.
Okay, it's that same one.
And that's what it talks about. It talks about the energy gets transferred from generation. So I'm wondering if that is a family constellation book.
Yes, it is. It was actually from that book, they created the series My Other Self. It's, well, it appears in the series and it's connected. So, yes.
Okay, no, I love that book. I read that book years ago, and it talks about that. It talks about he was a therapist or a psychiatrist, psychotherapist or therapist, one of the two. Excuse me for the viewers. It's a book I read. I don't remember the author. I just remember the title. I know it was a mental health professional.
Wilbert.
Yes. It was. He's a mental health professional. I forgot what his licensure is, but the book is about that. The book is about how he saw patients and clients and how they spoke about experiences that weren't necessarily theirs. It was their uncle, it was their grandparent, it was all of this unresolved trauma that was manifesting in them. So it traveled through the generation, and for some reason that person como que absorbed that energy and it manifested in eating disorders, anxiety, depression, unique habits and it talks about that. It talks about the generations, and it even talks about some research that they have with animals. I don't know if you remember that part of how generational trauma is transferred from generation to generation energetically as well, through your genes and all of that stuff, and energetically. It was a fascinating book. Fascinating. I read it like super quick.
Very. So it's very famous now because of that series that I told you about. A lot of people are reading it now because before, I guess, it wasn't, now it's kind of like the cool thing to do, you know, like everyone's like, oh, you know, we need to do mental healing or no, mental, we have to be, I forget.
Conscious more.
Yeah, but there's like this trendy word right now that it's going on, which is perfect. I mean, I love it. I
Bring more awareness to it.
Bring more awareness, even if it's like a, you know, it's something cool or whatever. But yeah, some very, very interesting, that book.
So, Erica, where can people find you? How do they get a session with you? How does that work? Explain to me, so explain to the viewers and the people listening to us.
Well, I have my Instagram that is erica.maraki.
Okay.
And you can find me through there, basically. If you want a session, I usually do a discovery call, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, depending. And from there, if that's something that resonates with the person, then we create a space where we do a family constellations, or I usually have workshops. I do have something that's called Maca Healing, which is a company that I have with my friend. We integrate, like you integrate different things. She is a sound therapist.
Oh,
So
beautiful.
we integrate sound healing, sometimes yoga. We do cacao circles. We do a little bit of everything to kind of give the family constellations and the workshops and our retreats a little bit like more different dynamics, I guess.
I love that. Do you have one coming up?
Yes, I actually have one on Saturday. And it's a small group, so it's already full, but I will start doing more in January when I come back
from Dubai.
And yes, and of course, we're going to do a family constellation so that you can experience one.
Oh, yeah, I would love to. I would love to do your workshops. I mean, I'm just interested. I'm fascinated with that aspect. I think
you're going to love
scary.
it.
I'm going to admit it's a little scary. But I think anything that's scary is worth exploring. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you as well.
Thank you for informing us of so many of this beautiful modality that people should know and that they have available to them.
Yes.